Welcome back. We have already discussed about break-even point in the last two sessions. We will just carry the process forward with some additional thought. Here is just for a brush up, here is the break-even point, and here is an example. So, we discussed about mixed cost, that is a cost that has a fixed component as well as a variable component. So, it is an example where that maintenance may have fixed as well as variable component, like say if you have annual maintenance, kind of a scheduled maintenance, that every 6 months you shut down the plant and spend a lot of money for a while and overhaul the plant. So, that is 5,000 rupees. Whereas, for if you produce more, maybe there are wear and tear and you have to do a lot of troubleshooting. So, that is contributing to something like 50 paisa per unit of product on an average. So, this is an example to estimate break-even point with mixed cost, fixed and variable. So, now the question is, find the quantity to be produced to break even, and then second question is, if the production plan is to produce 2000 unit annually, what is the profit? What is the profit, and then what is the margin of safety? There can be several other questions. So, here fixed cost is 30,000 per year, variable cost is 20 per unit, selling price is 30 per unit. So, break even point is fixed cost divided by contribution margin. So, it is 3000 units per year. That means, if you produce 3000 units per year, you make profit. You do not make profit, but you just cross the loss making zone and you are just ready to make profit if you produce and sell more. Now, if the question is that whether you make profit or loss if you produce 2000 unit, obvious answer is that you are incurring loss because you are producing and selling less than 3000 unit. What is the loss? So, you estimate the total cost, you estimate the total sales. So, sales minus cost is the profit or loss. So, here sales, if it is 2000 units, sale is 2000 multiplied by 30 is 60,000 is the sales. What is the total cost? Fixed cost is 30,000 plus variable cost is 20 multiplied by 2000 is 40,000. 40 plus 30 is 70,000. So, 70,000 is the cost, 60,000 is the sales, 10,000 rupees is the loss. Now, there is another component. Suppose you want to make 10,000 rupees of profit, then how many units you must produce and sell. So, this is an example of utilization of break-even point. In a meeting, you are trying to decide how many units we must sell to make a profit of 10,000. So, here is the calculation. So, your profit is 10,000. That means, your sales should be is equal to total cost plus profit. As I said, that sales is the only thing out of which you have to meet all the expenses and you have to make some profit. So, Q into V is the variable cost plus F is the fixed cost plus the profit. All these are to be met out of sales. So, out of sales. So, Q into S is the sales. Now, solving that with given data, it comes that you have to produce 4000 units to make a profit of 10,000. You can use alternately because you know the break even. Remember this is a very important point. After break even, once you know that this is the break even point, we know that 3000 quantity is the break even point, we estimated it here. So, beyond 3000, for every unit that you sell, you make a profit is equal to contribution margin, because you do not have to meet any more fixed cost, that is already done. So, 30 rupees is the selling price, 20 rupees is the variable cost, the difference between the two is 10 rupees, and for every unit you make that profit. To make 10,000 rupees of profit or 10,000 rupees of profit, you need to produce 1000 unit, 1000 multiplied by 10, because you are making a profit of 10 rupees per unit. So, either way you can estimate that. So, if you have to sell 1000 more beyond break even, so total sales should be 3000 is the break even sales plus 1000. Here is a list of items for your ready reference as to what kind of expenses are fall under what categories. So, depreciation is fixed, insurance is semi variable, but then in case the fixed component is not so large, or say the variable component is not at all large, then you can categorize that either this side or that side. Ultimately, it should help you to get informed decision about break even. That is the core objective. Rent is fixed, then fuel cost is variable because it changes with level of production. Stationery is variable, like printing is variable, whereas say internet connection you pay on a monthly basis, because it is periodic cost, you have to pay that no matter whatever is the production rate or sell or how much you sell. So, this is fixed cost. Income tax, if there is a question whether income tax is a variable cost or a fixed cost, the answer is income tax is not a cost. You pay income tax out of profit. So, whatever you allow before understanding or estimating profit is a cost. Beyond that is not cost. Like dividend is not a cost. Dividend you pay out of profit. So, you already estimate profit, out of that you pay dividend. That is why dividend is not a cost. It is given to the owners just as they wish to take away money, because they have invested money in the company, they would like to take some money home, and they do that out of the profit. So, after dividend whatever is left is called retained profit. Telephone bill payment is variable, because if you sell more you will be telephoning more and more, etc. Sales promotion also is variable, because sales promotion depends, or sales promotion cost is directly proportional to sales. The more you spend, the more you sell, something like that, etc. So, you see that leisurely. Use of BAP is very important part. It provides information on minimum sales for achieving profit, is obvious, means at threshold level beyond which you make profit. Helps to compare multiple business models. If there are 10 business models, you can see which one gives you profit early, means at lowest volume. Estimate amount of goods to be sold in order to meet all expenses. You just meet all expenses, level of production and profit thereof. It acts as a milestone for entire team to achieve targeted sales, meaning that your sales people, your production people, everybody becomes conscious that okay, this is the targeted sales and we are lagging behind, or we have achieved that. So, this becomes a driving force. So, people always try to achieve that at the very minimum, so that they do not incur loss. Understand the price sensitivity of the profit and decide on the price. So, if the price is high, you can estimate the break-even point just by increasing how sensitive your business is on price. You can change the price and then see how break-even point is changing. You can also change the variable cost, because fixed cost is fixed cost. Perhaps you cannot change. Variable cost can be changed with a scale of operation, etc., even though this particular formula does not take into account, but in reality you can actually do that. You can plot it. It may not be a straight line, but it can be done. But there are limitations. You have seen that there are too many assumptions for estimating break-even point. Every assumption is a limitation. Like fixed cost may vary with turnover. Suppose you are manufacturing 1,000 shirts in a month. Now suddenly you get higher order, say at 5,000. So, you have to install newer machine, then you have to maybe rent another premises. So, fixed cost may actually vary with changing turnover, but we presume that it is not varying. If it is varying, then estimation becomes complex. It can be done, it becomes complex. It is unlikely that there will not be inventory build up, means whatever you produce, there is hardly any occasion when you will be selling everything. Either you will be selling more or you will be selling less. So, there will either be inventory build up or inventory depletion. Break-even estimation is easy for simple business, but if you have a product mix and different products are selling at different volume at different points, it becomes very difficult, almost impossible to estimate. But then with all the limitations, or in spite of all the limitation, the advantages are enormous, because you have no other tool to apply to get this kind of insight. That is why break-even point is here to stay, and it is going to help you to make decision. Particularly for a startup, when there is no other tool to understand or for initial screening. Suppose you have some clarity about financial, for initial screening you can actually use this in a very means it gives you insight. Now, this is a digression, meaning I just wanted to make you or impress you or make you appreciate the importance of money that you invest on different things, with an example of inventory. Like we may think that inventory means inventory, we can just at wish we can increase the inventory and then do business, but just by efficient management of inventory, meaning the inventory of raw material that you hold for smooth production, and the stock of finished goods you hold for smooth sales. Why smooth sales? Because if there is no stock and there is order, you won't be able to cater to. So, but then many people are actually kind of cautious, overly cautious, so they maintain higher stock so that they don't lose opportunity. But this example actually drives home a point. Like if you suppose you are maintaining 13 million worth of stock, and suppose you borrow 10 million rupees from bank, at the end of the year you are going to pay interest of 1.5 million, that is 50 lakh rupees. Whereas if you can reduce the inventory, you can manage it in collaboration with your suppliers, meaning whenever you need the supply, if the supplier is ready to supply, you can maintain lower stock, and then eventually you can pay less interest, 7.5 lakh only. In the context of a huge large business, suppose your inventory is say 100 crore rupees. So, you will be paying huge amount of interest, something like 15 crore rupees of interest. If you can save that, you are going to translate that into profit. That is the point I wanted to, because in the whole of break-even analysis, we are thinking of cutting cost. Here is an option where you can very easily cut cost and improve, reduce break-even point, improve profit, etc. That is why I gave this example. Now, revisiting margin of safety. Margin of safety is nothing but planned sales minus break-even sales. It helps to assess possible risk. Suppose your break-even is at 5,000 and your planned sales is 5,500. You are very sensitive to market changes, market vagaries. Market condition goes down or a new competitor comes in and you are unable to sell 5,500, say you sell only 4,500, you incur loss. Whereas if your planned sales is about say 7,000, you are kind of much more comfortable. Even if the market situation changes, you get some breathing time before competitors actually reduce your sales below break-even point. You have lot of space here. You can come down from 7,000 to 6,000 to 5,500, something like that. By the time you make your own strategy, you acquire more customer through advertisement or through some other means. Graphical representation of margin of safety. This is break-even point. Now, this is the planned sales 9,000. This is the difference between planned sales and break-even point is margin of safety. Now, we discussed about degree of operating leverage, or even before that we did not discuss about different context of break-even analysis. Break-even analysis is particularly applied to analyze two different kinds of business model of the same product. Suppose you want to produce ready-made garment, you have two options. One is to install or put in place a highly technical, highly automatic machines. Alternately, you may have all human driven machine, and it's kind of labor intensive. Now, if you have to make a decision as to which one is better, it is not like automation is always better. It may be that automation is better, but how much better or for what production? So, the decision should be driven by, or decision should be made with the aid of break-even analysis. Here you look at this two example. The left side is an automatic one, automatic context, right side one is without automation, and if you measure the break-even point, you will find that the break-even point is much higher compared to this side. So, in the other session, previous session, we showed that for change in variable cost or reduction in variable cost, you actually have advantage, meaning your break-even point goes far down, it becomes very small. So, this is the new variable cost. Then and this is the new total cost, the new variable cost and the new total cost, and see how the break-even point has gone down and the margin of safety also has increased. Earlier it was 4,000, now it is 6,000. We revisit operating leverage. Operating leverage is the degree to which a firm can increase operating income by increasing sales. Very well said. Meaning, if you are increasing sales by 10%, does your operating profit increases by 10% or by 12% or by 20%? That is the degree of operating leverage. You should target a higher degree of operating leverage. Now, how do you do that? You have to go for a investment context or for an industry context where variable cost is low, whereas fixed cost is high, meaning that it should be capital intensive. If it is capital intensive, that reduces variable cost, that is a better proposition because that has high operating leverage. If you remember, fixed cost by variable cost is also defined as operate. There are many definitions, but this also is one of the definitions. And what happens in that case? This happens actually. See, your variable cost has gone down, fixed cost has gone up, but look at the angle between the sales line and the total cost line. The angle actually has increased. That means for every incremental sales, you are making more operating profit, which is the definition of operating leverage. For every incremental sales beyond break-even point, you make more profit. We discussed about financial leverage, but just to revisit that, financial leverage tells you, before that, what is leverage? Dictionary meaning of leverage is to use something, a factor or a relation or whatever you can define for your advantage. Suppose your father is a minister who is kind of giving approval for new companies. Now, you can use that relation or exploit that relation to get your license quickly. In that context, you say that I am leveraging my relation with my father, or I am leveraging my father being a minister to get this license. So, leveraging means using something for your advantage. Suppose you know somebody and he knows another guy who is your customer. So, to reach out to the customer, rather than going directly, use your friend's connection. So, you are leveraging your relation with your friend to get to the customer. That is on social context. Industry context, suppose you have say 50 rupees in your pocket. Let us talk in terms of lakhs, will be better. Suppose you have 10 lakh rupees in your pocket. Now, you go to bank and tell them that give me some loan, I want to start a company. The bank will say how much you need. Suppose you need 40 lakh rupees. Then bank will say you bring 10 lakh rupees, we are going to give you 30 lakh rupees. So, you are leveraging on your capital with bank loan. Now, suppose the bank tells you that we cannot give you 30 lakh rupees of loan if you bring only 10 lakh rupees. You bring 20 lakhs, we are going to give you 20 lakhs. That means you are targeting, or the bank is trying to suggest you to go for less leverage. Suppose you insist that no, I do not have 10 lakh rupees, please give me 30 lakh rupees so that I can start, and then as I make profit, I will contribute, I will not draw that money as dividend, I will reinvest that, plow back that money in the business. Gradually my debt to equity ratio will reduce, meaning that I will repay the loan and then my leverage will come down. So, you start with high leverage, then gradually you bring down the leverage. Leverage is a very dangerous thing. Financial leverage is a dangerous thing. The stories that you hear nowadays, like Bhushan Steel, like JP Group, like Acer Steel, these are all going down because they adopted a high leverage context. They borrowed huge amount of money, so much money that they could not service. That is why leverage is viewed as great risky proposition. High operating leverage means fixed cost is high. So, these are already discussed, but the break-even point of a company is at a high level if you are investing so much money in fixed cost, in acquiring fixed assets, meaning capital investment. Low operating leverage means you are adopting a very low capital investment model of a business, where the variable cost will be very high. So, fixed cost divided by variable cost will be very high, very low, I am sorry. Now, this actually demonstrates this point. See this angle between sales and total cost. This angle is larger in the context of a high fixed cost and lower variable cost compared to a higher variable cost and lower fixed cost. So, look at the angle between the red line and green line and the curve that is shown here. Degree of operating leverage has many formulas actually, but here are some: contribution by profit, or the operating profit divided by percentage, or EBIT or EBIT, means profit before degree of operating leverage. Quantity multiplied by unit price means the contribution divided by operating profit, contribution by operating profit. Operating profit is EBIT, EBIT, earning before interest and tax. So, here is the example about degree of operating leverage. Say you have all this data. So, you estimate, the formula is contribution divided by operating profit. Contribution is nothing but your total number of unit that you produce multiplied by unit contribution, that is price minus variable cost, divided by operating profit is nothing but contribution minus fixed cost, means total sales minus total cost. So, it is 114%, which indicates, this is more important, if degree of operating leverage is 114%, that means for every 10% increase in sales, your operating profit will increase by 11.4%. Suppose in this case your fixed cost was 50,000 rupees, then you will see that degree of operating leverage is 133%, meaning that for every 10% sales, your operating income or operating profit will increase by 13.3%. Just to show them more directly, I have two examples side by side. In one, you have higher fixed cost, lower variable cost. In another, you have lower fixed cost, higher variable cost. At the end, you look at the last line. Profit for every extra unit is 10,000 on the left, whereas profit for every extra unit is only 5,000 on the right. That shows the impact of high degree of operating leverage and low degree of operating leverage. It's purely academic, you do not have to break your head to understand. Operating leverage actually, at the break-even point, it is infinite, because if you remember the formula, it is operating income divided by, it is contribution divided by operating income. So, at break-even, your operating income will be 0, because your total cost, your contribution minus fixed cost will be 0, because profit is 0, operating profit is 0. So, it will be infinite. So, whether you look it from left side or right side, the degree of operating leverage below break-even point will gradually increase to the negative and it reach negative infinity. If you approach from the right side, meaning that you are operating above break-even point, immediately after break-even point will be infinite and gradually it will come down. So, you have to decide at what level you operate, so that for every incremental production and sell you actually make profit. So, the same example given here, maybe by mistake or maybe I wanted to put it again. Operating leverage also is defined as percentage change in operating profit divided by percentage change in sales or contribution by operating profit. You have seen. Key takeaways: the degree of operating leverage measures the change in operating income of a company in response to change in sales. Obviously, the first formula here clearly says that, and we have seen that through estimation of percentage increase in profit. It helps analysts in gauging the impact of change in sales on earnings. Suppose you have two different businesses or maybe altogether different companies, and you are trying to understand for changing sales in the future. Suppose the market situation is good, so this particular company will sell 10% more as well as that company. So, who is going to make more profit will be determined by degree of operating leverage. So, as an analyst also you need to estimate this. If sales increases in large measure for a company of high operating leverage, profit will increase substantially, obviously. Financial leverage is defined as EBIT or EPS, earning per share, or net profit, profit after tax, divided by EBIT minus interest, which is profit before tax. EBIT is earning before interest and tax, so you just deduct interest, it is profit before tax. So, it measures the sensitivity of a company's net profit on fluctuation of operating profit as a result of changes in capital structure, meaning if the loan component goes high, your interest will be high, so your net profit will be low. Whereas, if your capital structure is such that you have a low debt equity ratio, for increase in sales, your profit will be more substantial compared to a high debt equity ratio. The financial leverage ratio indicates the overall debt load of a company, as I gave example earlier, compared to its assets or equity. Putting it differently, it shows what portion of its asset has been financed by the shareholders with their own money and what has been financed by bank or any other lender, their money. Shareholders owning a majority of the assets have low financial leverage and vice versa. Cost indifference point we have discussed. See, cost indifference point is a point where these different kinds of cost structure, means the businesses of different kinds of cost structure meet at one point, the profit meets at one point, meaning that the profit is indifferent of their cost structure at a particular point. Meaning the fixed cost structure, fixed cost is high for a company, fixed cost is low for a company, variable cost is low for a company, cost is high, but then there will be one point where they will meet together, the profit will meet together, that is cost indifference, meaning that profit is indifferent of cost. So, the cost indifference point is a level of production and sale at which the profit is indifferent of the two strategies. These are cost strategies. So, here is the line, this data has been plotted using Excel and it's real data about profitability. So, you can see that the cost means the profitability is the blue line is the profitability of a high capital cost but low variable cost structure. The red one is the same business with a low capital investment or low fixed cost structure, but high variable cost proposition. So, you can see that the slope of the profit of automatic business with automatic machinery is much higher compared to the slope of the line with a low fixed cost and high variable cost construct. But then they meet at one point. So, in real life you have to decide where you are going to operate. If you are going to operate beyond this cost indifference point, then you should go for automated machine, investing more money, meaning that the cost structure is high fixed cost, low variable cost, whereas if you are operating at a low capacity, then you have to go for a low fixed cost and high variable cost, because you make more profit there. Here is an example, you can see them. There are too many examples today actually. This example is about cost indifference point, and you can just pause and see. And this is, we discussed about this 10 carat gold jewelry, and here is an example showing a automatic context and a semi-automatic production context. I do not have many references here, and just 2-3 concluding points. I think we will close it a day here. Thank you very much.